Todd Bowles, you got to go for two at the end of that game. Like, you got the defending champs up against the rope,
It's 2 games.
and you got to go for two. You have to. And then what was the deal about calling a timeout with 30 seconds left? It's like, oh, we're going to call our last timeout right now and not let the clock run. We're just going to give Mahomes as much time as possible after you
I
score
thought
on the next play. Like, how stupid was that?
I thought right there, I was like, "Oh, okay, Chiefs won."
When I come to your city, I'm a new score. Broke your high score soon as I step through the door. Tryna stack my paper up like a bookstore. Money kissing each other like a rock and roll tour. When I come to your city, I'm a new score. Broke your high score soon as I step through the door. Tryna stack my paper up like a bookstore. Money kissing each other like a rock and roll.
Hey, Tyler.
Hey, Piet.
What's going on? Welcome to the New Score podcast. My name is Pat. This is my co-host, TYG, Tyler Pratt. Tyler, how we be doing?
Cold day up here in the bricks. So it's that time of year, but we're doing good. I just got back from a little vacation, hit up Orlando, some Universal action, which is right up my alley because I love all that shit. And and it isn't fair, but I'm a Universal over Disney kind of guy. I haven't been to Disney since I was a kid. I was like, I don't know, maybe 10, 11. So I haven't tried it yet as an adult. So I got to give it a shot, but I've always been a Universal guy. So that was fun.
Definitely should. Yeah, it's been a crazy last couple of weeks. So I apologize for not having an episode out last week for everybody listening. Tyler was on a trip, as he said, and I literally just moved into my new place here in Jacksonville. So it's been quite the whirlwind of a week, but
Yeah.
we're ready. We're ready to talk some ball. There's a lot to catch up on. Talking about the NFL trade deadline just happened. We got Bengals and Ravens playing right now as we speak. So be getting a live reaction to that game right now. Cincinnati's up 7-0, but the Ravens are marching, and the Ravens look so clean in these purple uniforms. Tyler, I tell you what, these things are swaggy to the max. The purple and like the gold with it. Ooh, they look tough out there. It's going to be tough to beat them in those uniforms, but we're going to see what happens. We're going to go through some of the significant trades. Our last episode, we already addressed the Amari Cooper to the Bills, Devontae Adams to the Jets. Maybe we could talk about that a little bit, what we've seen since that first happened. But there's some other moves we definitely got to get into. One that your Dallas Cowboys made that I know you don't want to talk about, but we're going to have to talk about it eventually here. But it's been an active last couple of weeks in the NFL. All the while these games are going on, Week 10's coming up. Crazy to believe that we're already in Week 10. Every year it just flies right by. Sadly, it's unfortunate, but things are heating up. We got contenders, we got pretenders, we got teams already thinking about the draft. We're gonna cover it all. We're gonna go through all these matchups, and just talk about the teams in general. Our thoughts, because there's a lot of takes that have been boiling up inside me, and I'm excited to just vent, get it off my chest, talk about some football because, like I said, it's been a couple weeks. So excited to get into it. If you are on YouTube right now, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify. Get at us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Appreciate everybody listening. Thank you for your support. Let's get into this trade deadline, Tyler. We got a lot to talk about around the league, but I do want to go through these trades, just some of the notable ones at least. We don't have to go through all of them. The one that stuck out to me that I really liked was the Washington Commanders realizing that they're a team that's ready to win right now. They're ahead of schedule because their rookie quarterback is a star in this league already. And Dan Quinn has done a great job just changing the whole culture in that building. A lot of the guys that they brought in, a lot of the vets, we didn't give this team much of a shot going into the season, and to see them where they're at right now is just extraordinary. You don't see that very often in the NFL. So they're saying, hey, we're contenders. We got this cap to spend. And they go out and they get a number one corner. Because if you look at that Commanders team, the weakness over the past, I don't know, it's been a while in Washington before they had a dominant secondary. Going back to the days of that guy up there, it's been a while in Washington since they've had a capable secondary. So I loved the move. Obviously, they drafted Sandstro this year. They're very young at corner, but now you're getting that vet who's been an all-pro multiple times in this league. Marshawn Lattimore, guy who's won. He's feisty. He's physical. Like I said, savvy vet. And he's going to teach these young bucks. He's going to teach them the ways of playing corner in the NFL. So that's very exciting, I think, for the Washington Commanders. That's the one that sticks out most to me. What are your thoughts on Lattimore to Washington? And then which trade really stuck out to you at the deadline?
Yeah, it's a huge move for them. They're clearly in contention. They're a lot further along than we thought they would be at this point in the season. You look at the top of the NFC, it's the Lions, and then after that, it's really the Commanders, right? We expected the 49ers to be there. They've struggled, obviously, with all their injuries up to date. So we expect them to kind of hit a stride at some point, especially with McCaffrey coming back, if most likely this week, but if not, definitely next week. So, maybe they get on a little win streak and we start to kind of get on that train again. But as of right now, when you're looking at the number 2 team in the NFC, you kind of have to throw the Commanders in that mix. The Eagles aren't quite where we thought they would be, but they're, they have made improvements, but they got things going on with AJ Brown. So this was a move for the Commanders to make. They needed it. We know their secondary was probably the biggest weakness, or one of the biggest weaknesses on their team as a whole. Their defense just needed improvement. Dan Quinn back there, obviously, getting those guys all coached up is huge. So getting Lattimore in there is a big move for them. One of the other big moves stuck out to me was Zadarius Smith to the Lions. I thought, obviously, with the Aiden Hutchinson injury, they had to address that, and they did. They know that they're the team to beat right now, and getting another pass rusher in there to help kind of fill that void was a huge move. So that was probably one of the more significant trades to me.
And obviously the ultimate, mainstream take from the trade deadline is going to be all about D-Hop. DeAndre Hopkins going to the Chiefs. It's a move that you could imagine it for the last few years, and it finally came to fruition for the Chiefs, and he's been a dog for them already. You're seeing chemistry between him and Mahomes. Baltimore just scored to make it 7-6, pending extra point. So we got a guy in Baltimore. It's going to be a fun one. I'm excited to go through this. It was Aguilar.
Of course. You think
Wide
Marty
open,
better?
too. No. That was a really good play call. Play scheme. It looked like Lamar was going to run.
That D-Hop trade, though, just D-Hop to the Chiefs in general, we talked about that like that preseason before he signed with Tennessee. I mean, we have talked about him going to the Chiefs for a while now, and I remember before him signing with Tennessee, we were like, everything just lines up. It makes sense for him to go to Kansas City. It didn't happen until now, but it was definitely, like you said, something we saw coming.
Yeah, and like I said, immediately he's making an impact, and so huge for them because they were lacking there when Rice went down. And you get the news that Hollywood's not coming back until the end of the regular season potentially. They needed something there, and what a better situation change. Is there anything better than that for D-Hop at this point in his career? He's been on some losing teams ever since, I feel like, the Matt Schaub days in Houston. It's been so long. Obviously Watson. I forgot about Watson in Houston. They were a good team then. But since then, he's been on so many losing teams. So how great is this for him towards the end of his career? He gets traded to Kansas City. Mahomes, Andy Reid, and that offense with the way that defense is rolling and that culture, he's going to be competing for a ring this year. So happy for D-Hop. It's going to be, as long as he stays healthy, it's going to be dangerous, him in Kansas City. But they gave up a 5th-round pick for him, and this is where I'm going to lead into your Dallas Cowboys. You guys gave up a 4th round for Jonathan Mingo. How did you feel about that trade? Why don't you want to talk about it? And is Jerry Jones and the Jones family cooked?
I mean, it's excuse me, it's an obvious reach. You overpaid, in my opinion. I know Mingo is a former 2nd-round pick. He's still young. I understand that, and he can prove himself. And then we can look back at this trade in 2 or 3 years and be like, "Oh wow, that great trade." But right now, it seems like that was a steep price point. And I don't know who else in the league was offering up a 4th-round pick. Nobody, probably. So I don't know who was offering a 5th-round pick. Well, we might not ever know. But for Dallas to just come through, drop a 4th-round pick on that, and just it doesn't make too much sense. I know they wanted to get another guy in there, but with Dak going out now, it's going to be the Cooper Rush, maybe Trey Lance show. Just not a great price. Really, what it boils down to. I don't mind them getting a wide receiver, a young guy that they can keep on the roster, who's not a big cost against the salary, with some potential. But the timing of it, I don't know. I don't like it.
Yeah, we're going to get into your Cowboys as we go through these matchups later on. But another guy, Deontay Johnson, who's playing tonight for the Ravens, he also went for just a 5th-round pick. So that just kind of gives you the perspective on the situation of, those receiver trades. The Ravens also got Tre'Davious White from the Rams. I'm not heartbroken about it at all. Trey White's been a healthy scratch for us his last few weeks anyways, hasn't really played since the beginning of the season, and they're seeing some young guys develop there. So not really a hit to us, but it is kind of depressing paying him in the offseason and getting excited about that. And then you end up just basically getting rid of him for nothing because you gave up a 7th-round pick and him, and you just got a 7th-round pick back. So they were just trying to dump him. They did it. But it would have been nice to use that cap elsewhere in the offseason is how I'm seeing that. But we'll see how he fits into Baltimore. They could definitely use the help at corner. I'm not sure if he's playing tonight. Some other trades, the Pittsburgh Steelers making some moves. They get Preston Smith from Green Bay, help out on the edge. And then they also get Mike Williams from the Jets. And the Steelers have been linked to these wide receivers across the league for the last, since the offseason when all the Ayuk drama was going on. The Steelers have constantly been linked to wide receivers. I'd be curious to ask a Steelers fan how they felt about it and ended up being Mike Williams, like how they would feel about that. Personally, I think Mike Williams is a good receiver, but I'm not sure that's the type of receiver they needed in Pittsburgh, because I feel like Pickens is already that physical, go up, get the ball type of possession receiver, physical. It would have been nice to see him maybe get somebody more elusive than Mike Williams, maybe younger, not as injury prone. But I think they definitely needed to boost that receiving room at the deadline. So good for the Pittsburgh Steelers doing that. Hopefully Mike Williams stays healthy. And then Preston Smith also, I think Green Bay just felt they drafted these younger guys on the edge for them, and they want those guys to play. So they got rid of Preston Smith, and it ends up being good for the Steelers because the Steelers can now add some depth. They've had some injuries on their edge. So it's just building depth for the Steelers to make a run this season. They've been a fun team to watch. But what are your takes on the Steelers? How do you think Mike Williams fits into this offense?
I had kind of had the same thoughts you did, where him and Pickens are really the same kind of, they're the same type of receiver. Maybe that's what they're going for in a scheme fit. Maybe they try to utilize Pickens in a couple different ways. I feel like they're kind of missing like that guy they can just throw in the slot and have him really work the sticks right in the middle of the field. Maybe that's Pickens. Maybe they believe that he can do that for him, and then they can still have Mike Williams on the outside, kind of clearing out the safety and just providing another weapon for him. But I do think Mike Williams still has juice in the tank. We didn't see it in New York. It was a weird tenure for him there with the Jets. It just didn't work. So scrap it, flush it. Now he's with the Steelers. I like that for him. I think getting, another weapon on the defense to rush the passer is good for that defense as well. They haven't had like that high pressure rate that we're used to seeing Pittsburgh have. And, this helps with, adding that to TJ Watt and Highsmith. So I like it. I like what they did. They definitely can make a run at the wild card position. We've seen what Russell Wilson has done. We'll see this week. It's going to be a fun matchup. They take on the Commanders. They're at Washington this week, so that's going to be a fun one to dive into. But I like what they did.
Just briefly covering NFC West right now, it's anybody's game. It's literally wide open, the entire division. It's going to be a fun race down the stretch. 3 of those 4 teams in the NFC West made deals at the deadline. My Rams were the one team in the division to not do any buying at the deadline. So just talking about those a little bit, the Niners get D-tackle Khalil Davis from Houston to add some depth up front for them. And then the Arizona Cardinals get Baron Browning from the Broncos. So Cardinals are making a statement that they're going in on this season. And then Seattle gets Ernest Jones from the Titans, and they swap Jerome Baker, Tennessee. So we just played Seattle last week in a barn burner. Phenomenal game. Came right down to the stretch, and that throw and catch from Stafford to Demarcus Robinson to call game in overtime was tremendous. That had me off the couch real quick. That was so fun at the end of that game and the way the defense stood up. But anyways, we don't make a move. These teams do. In that game, had to watch Ernest Jones, who was our play caller these last few years, won a Super Bowl with the Rams, and now he's in Seattle, and he's still very young. So that was very tough to see him out there, John, with Stafford. It made it interesting. It was an entertaining game, as it always is, playing Seattle. But those are the moves at the NFC West. And then also I want to talk about the Chiefs. They get Josh Uche from New England. So the Chiefs are just building to that machine that Spags is running over there. So they only get better as well. I think we already covered Cam Akers going to Minnesota, familiar place for him. We'll see if they get him more involved going forward. I think they have some injury issues. Aaron Jones hasn't been 100% these last few weeks. But that's pretty much it, Tyler, covering all the big moves. Cam Robinson going to Minnesota. We also covered that one as well. Khalil Herbert goes to Cincinnati from Chicago. He wasn't playing for the Bears anyways. They made it a point that Roschon Johnson was going to get those supplementary carries this year and not Herbert once they brought in Swift. And Swift has looked really good recently. So, it's no really loss for the Bears. They end up getting a pick out of it, whatever. Cincinnati, Zach Moss is injured, so Cincinnati's rocking with Chase Brown, who's ran the ball really well, and he's a great receiving threat. Chase he's been fun to watch this season. So it'll be interesting to see how Khalil Herbert pairs up with that, how they want to do it. I'm not sure if Herbert's playing tonight. I'll try to key in on that. I want to know if he's playing. I want to know if Trey White's out there. I'm not sure. But that's it. That's it for the trade deadline. Let's start talking about these matchups and just kind of our latest feels on these teams across the league. We don't have to cover the matchup so much as I just want to go through and cover the latest around the league, really. Starting it off, Sunday morning, game in Germany. They're giving Germany quite the game.
Game of the week.
Quite the game. We got Daniel Jones versus Bryce Young. It doesn't get any better than that, Germany. So you're welcome.
This is a big me game. I mean, I'm gonna love watching this game.
You would, you sick son of a bitch. 2-7 New York Giants. 2-7 Carolina Panthers. Panthers get a win last week against the Saints, which resulted in your boy Dennis Allen getting fired.
Mm-hmm.
We should have done. Oh, we forgot. We're gonna have to do it. Dennis Allen, you're fired.
You're fired.
So yeah, these Carolina Panthers, they ended Dennis Allen's tenure in New Orleans. Thank God. I'd imagine those fans had gotten sick of it. Us being neutral fans, we were sick of them for quite some time in New Orleans. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do going forward, what they do with Derek Carr. I know Gruden's been linked to that organization in the past. It would be fun. It would be fun to see him go in there, maybe them draft a quarterback, and off you go. As long as they got to handle that cap situation, that's still a mess. But obviously, dumping Marshawn Lattimore and Cameron Jordan being at the end of his career now, we'll get into them. But just talking about this Giants-Panthers game right now, I'm not very excited about this matchup. I know you are, Tyler, so I'm going to let you dive into it. What makes this game so intriguing to you? And then Daniel Jones, are you starting to come back down to earth and maybe realizing that this guy shouldn't be playing starting quarterback in the NFL? Is it finally that time for you in year 6? And then also, from what you've seen from Bryce Young these last couple weeks, are we saying there's a chance? Is there a chance to turn this thing around for Bryce Young?
Yeah, so really the only thing that interests me in this game is the fact that I have a bet on the Patriots to have the least amount of wins in the NFL, and there's like 7.
I had the Giants.
Yeah, there's like 7 teams or something like that right now that all have 2 wins. They're even across the board. So with 2-7 teams, one of them's got to lose, which means that's one less 2-win team, and I don't see the Patriots winning this week either. So, yeah, that's the biggest thing I'm looking forward to, is just one of these teams getting a win.
I just realized this game means a lot to me as well.
Yeah, diving into it, Giants are -6.5 right now at DK. The over/under total points are sitting at 40.5. This is kind of to me, it's a tough game to bet. It's a tough bet. They're going to Germany. These games that they're going across the pond for are always tough bets. You never really know what to expect. One of the things you can tend to trend-wise count on is maybe the under and the favorite. So maybe you just go with the Giants -6.5, but like, what have they done over the last, 3 or 4 weeks to make you think that they can win by a touchdown against any team, right? With the injuries that they've had. Here's the thing, especially to touch on your Daniel Jones question. Yeah, Danny Dimes is who he is. We all know that. It's just if you can give him a bit of a pocket, he can be decent. And if there is no time for him to throw and he has to create, he can't. And we know that. So the offensive line has gotten banged up this season. I'm pretty sure Andrew Thomas is out for the year. So he doesn't have that left tackle watching his back. He's kind of screwed, and we're going to see him kind of go back to his old ways. But I think he's okay. We know what we're going to get out of him, and that's some sloppy play here and there. He's going to get you some yards on the ground. I think for some reason, though, I feel like he's been starting to gain confidence, which is odd because it's not like he's had 300 passing yard games. But seems like he's getting more and more comfortable, so good for him. And the flip side of that, Bryce Young, I think that since he's come back these last 2 games, he's actually played fairly well, especially from what we have seen from him in the beginning of this year and last year. These last couple of games, Bryce Young played fairly well. He had a couple picks, but none of those were really bad throws. One of them was a money throw that he put in literally right in the breadbasket, and somehow the receiver bobbled it a little bit and then let the cornerback just take it right out of his arms, and it was a pick. So it's like he threw a really good ball, but it went against him in the stat sheet. But either way, this is going to be, for me, this could be a shit show of a game. This could be one of the ugliest games of the week. I just want everyone to be prepared for that. So don't feel like you have to wake up early to watch this one. But if I had to go one way or the other here, I probably would go Giants just because of that run game with Tracy and Singletary, and the Panthers struggle to stop the run. So if I had to go with someone here, I'd probably take the Giants -6.5.
Well, congratulations to Daniel Jones on finally starting to gain confidence in year 6 of the NFL. I will say, though, showing the GM, that guy can draft. Like Tracy's looked good this year. Obviously, Malik Neighbors. We like Theo Johnson at tight end. They got Andrew Thomas was a great pick. Thibodeau on defense, who's been out. I like Thibodeau. That cornerback, the rookie, has been awesome this season. They've been able to draft. If this team gets a quarterback in next year's draft, like, they've got something, I think, in New York. Obviously, add another weapon at receiver, I would say, and boost that O-line that has been broken down. Other than that, I think this team's got some real hope in the future. They just got to get that quarterback in there. I don't think this is on Dable or Schoen. I think Schoen, especially, he's done his job there.
He tried.
Let's move on. Yeah. Let's move on to a very intriguing matchup, the 1 o'clock window. The Denver Broncos, who are now 5-4, visiting Arrowhead, the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. And this is a tough stretch for Denver because last week they just took a shellacking in Baltimore, 41-10. And now they got to turn around and go to Kansas City. So very tough stretch for Bo Nix and Sean Payton. Obviously, the Chiefs are coming off that game that went right down the wire Monday night against Tampa at home. In Tampa, Todd Bowles, you got to go for 2 at the end of that game. Like, you got the defending champs up against the rope.
It's 2 games.
And you got to go for 2. You have to. And then what was the deal about calling a timeout with 30 seconds left? It's like, oh, we're going to call our last timeout right now and not let the clock run. We're just going to give Mahomes as much time as possible after you score on the next play. Like, how stupid was that?
I thought right there, I was like, oh, okay, Chiefs won. I thought right there when he called the timeout and they scored on the next play, giving Mahomes like 30 seconds. I was like, oh, the Chiefs win.
Yeah. And it's like they got lucky that nothing happened at the end of that, and it did end up going into overtime, but you didn't get the ball back. You didn't get the ball back after that because they just went down and scored first possession in overtime. It's like, when are these coaches going to learn? Another example of that, Brian Flores, New England, that game in Tennessee. You got you're 2-6 or 2-7, whatever it is, New England. You're not going anywhere. You go for 2 at the end of the game. Like, what is there to lose, man? You got a team, you're on the road, you got a team up against the ropes. Your rookie quarterback balls out last drive, goes down, makes a sick play, score a touchdown. You got all the momentum in the world right then. Just go for the win in that moment. What happens in that game? They lose in overtime. So twice this past week that happened. Dare I say, 2 defensive-oriented head coaches just playing it safe, playing it conservative, the game down on the wire. They didn't go for the knockout. They just kept the other team in it, and then they ended up losing in overtime. So I just thought those 2 moves by those 2 coaches, dumb. Chiefs end up getting out, though. They're not dominating, though. They're undefeated right now. but you're seeing it all over the place. You're hearing it. They don't look dominant. They don't look like that team. At the end of the day, though, folks, like, they're winning football games, and winning in the NFL is hard enough. But when you win 2 Super Bowls in a row, the target on you is massive. And coaches are scheming up for weeks after weeks after weeks to try and figure out how to beat you. You're that team that circle on everybody's schedule. You're getting everything that these teams are throwing at you. All of these plays that are being drawn, these special plays, they're saving them for, these games against Kansas City. So they're getting the kitchen sink thrown at them. And at the end of the day, you're coming out winning. That only makes you tougher in the long run, because once it gets to the postseason, this team knows how to win in crunch time. We've seen it in the past, and now these guys that are in there now are getting implemented into that system. So they continue to find ways to win. It's going to be tough for the Denver Broncos. I want you to talk to me about what's the spread in this game, and do you expect this to be – I could see it potentially being pretty sloppy, Denver making it sloppy, or I could potentially see Kansas City blowing Denver's doors off. I could see it going, either way. What are your takes on this game?
Yeah, so I want to start out by saying, maybe I know when we talk about some of the best D coordinators in the league, I feel like a lot of people sleep on Spags, especially what he's been able to do with that defense and, with the offense not being able to do a ton this year yet. Here they are sitting at, 8-0, 14-15 in a row dating back to last year. Defense looks dominant. Spags is kind of a name that flies under the radar, which is kind of crazy to think for, like you said, a team that just won back-to-back Super Bowls. So spread on this one, though, as of right now, sitting at 7.5. I think it opened more like 8.5. Totals at 42. The Broncos defense for pretty much all year until last week has been real good. I think part of that has been the teams that they've played, the competition, the quarterbacks that they faced, and then they finally ran into the Ravens last week and they got absolutely rolled. So I don't think they get rolled against the Chiefs, though. Again, the Chiefs' offense hasn't been high-powered anyways, so it's not like I can see them putting up 30 here. But I can see the Broncos maybe only scoring 1 touchdown. I don't think Bo Nix and their lack of run game is going to be able to do a whole lot against this defense in Kansas City. Sean Payton's got his work cut out for him this week. So to me, that total at 42 right now, I kind of like the under. I'll have to do a little more, but I will say, just from what I've been hearing on some of the other pods I listen to, the trends all point to taking Denver at this number at plus 7.5. If you got them at plus 8.5, you probably feel pretty good about that. But at plus 7.5, trends point to Denver because the Chiefs are coming off of a short week, overtime game. So, and I believe they traveled, right? Was that game in Tampa? I can't remember. No, it was at home game. Okay,
Yeah.
So
For some
they
reason, the
stayed-
Chiefs are always playing prime time at home. It's weird.
So yeah, that's a good point. So at least they have a home game. They didn't have to travel, but just with certain trends, they point to the Broncos being kind of the side to take here. So I'm probably going to stay away from that just because I don't see the Broncos scoring very much in this game. So I kind of like the leaning towards the under 42 in this one.
Yeah, like I said before, I could see this being sloppy. I will say, though, Kareem Hunt, another example of just how this team relates to that Patriots dynasty. These guys leave, and they come right back in. They fit like a glove, and Kareem Hunt's running all over defenses. It's
Yeah.
like those are the perfect examples of what it looks like to be a great organization, is when you could do that. It's so when people were like, "Oh, you could put any running back," da, 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 da. It's like, I mean, to a certain extent, yeah, Andy Reid's going to make a lot of backs look good if you learn that system in Kansas City. It's not
Yeah.
crazy to say that, like it would be in a lot of situations. I just think these guys they're on a different level. than the rest of the league right now. Like, it's not close. Just the standard that they have, that they set each and every day, they continue to be hungry. Like, they're never satisfied, and it's a great recipe cooking in Kansas City right now. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, I was just gonna speak on Hunt. It's one of those backs, like, why? I know that he's not young, and running backs in this league get cycled out rather quickly, but what, like, nobody wanted him. Like, not one other team in the NFL thought, like, yeah, maybe Kareem Hunt can help us this year. You know?
Dallas.
And Dallas doesn't think anybody can help them. So, other than Jonathan Mingo.
Let's move on to a juicy matchup this Week 10 schedule. The 6-2 Pittsburgh Steelers going on to play the 7-2 Washington Commanders. We talked about it a little earlier. They just get Marshawn Lattimore. This team's going all out. This is a very exciting matchup because the Steelers have been rolling. Obviously, the defense has been balling out all season, and now Russell Wilson is thrown into the equation, and it just feels like we've seen a different dynamic to the Steelers team. And they played the Jets, who haven't been good, and they played the Giants, who haven't been good since Russ has been back. So we do have to put that into perspective a little bit. But either way, I think it's exciting to see what he's done in Pittsburgh, and then the combination with that run game. You bring in Mike Williams now. They got some real weapons, and I've talked about Calvin Austin in the past. I'd like to see him more involved in this offense. I don't know if he's dealing with an injury or what, but I haven't seen much of him these last few weeks. It would be nice to see him get it in there. Van Jefferson's look good, though, even for them. So they've got some depth, underrated depth, I think, in Pittsburgh as far as their weapons go. Cordell Patterson, Jalen Warren, they can get them going in the run game, pass game as well. So the Steelers got it going on right now. The AFC North, between obviously this game right here between the Ravens and Bengals, is ginormous, this division, because no team wants to fall back when you got the Steelers doing what they're doing right now. And as I mentioned with Washington, it's extraordinary what this team's put together. Dan Quinn and Jane Daniels in their first year with this organization, it's a complete turnaround, instant rebuild in Washington. It's been very exciting. Thing that sticks out to me is how well because Washington's front is what we were concerned with going into the season. O-line played terrible last year. They've held up pretty well for the most part this season. How are they going to do against the Steelers front? This is a real test, I think, for that offensive line in Washington, and I'm excited to see what goes on, if Jaden is going to be able to make something happen while TJ Watt is breathing down his neck. But very exciting game in this 1 o'clock window for me. I'm ready to watch this one.
This is going to be arguably the best pass rush and overall defense that Jaden Daniels has faced so far this year. So it's going to be a good test. Like, I'm excited to just see how well he plays against this defense. And I mean, maybe the Bears, I know that the Bears have a really good defense, and we saw Jaden Daniels, I don't want to say struggle, but he obviously didn't have like that crazy Jaden Daniels performance, but
sloppy game that was.
Yeah. So could happen here. We'll see. But as far as spreads go, Commanders -3. Jaden Daniels is, I want to say he's 5-0 against the spread as a favorite or something like that this year, which is pretty insane for a rookie quarterback. It's an insane stat for anyone in general, let alone a rookie quarterback. So if you're one of those people who likes to kind of ride the wave, so to speak, then ride with the Commanders here at -3. If you're a little hesitant about it, I just wouldn't pick a side. This isn't a bet I feel comfortable really taking either way. I know earlier this year I rode with the Steelers, and I think I'm 4-0 taking the Steelers spread so far this year. But ever since I think week 4, I haven't bet on them since then. So no, I lost the one against Dallas. I lied. I lost that game. I was heavy on them against Dallas on that Sunday night delayed game, but aside from that, I haven't bet on them since, and it's just a tough one. Total sitting at 45. I, you know, I don't really have a strong opinion on this one either way, but I think, yeah, like I said before, if you're someone who likes to ride the wave, ride that Jaden Daniel streak, take the Commanders at -3. Otherwise, I'd probably stay away.
Just a quick catch up. It's still 7-7. Bengals are marching. Kyle Hamilton just went down, lower leg injury, non-contact. So I'm hoping it's the ankle and not the Achilles. I think it is just a very bad rolled ankle, but hoping he's going to be all right. But I don't know what his chances are coming back in this one. Minnesota Vikings, 6-2, coming off a primetime win against the Colts, visiting down here in Duval. The 2-7 Jacksonville Jaguars, hometown hero, Mac Jones, making his debut for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Hell yeah.
Who gave it a go in Philadelphia last week. It was not looking good first half of that game. They came back, made it real interesting down the stretch. Almost had, game-winning touchdown in the end until they decided to throw a pass to their third-string receiver, Dearness Johnson, and not, I don't know, maybe Evan Ingram or Bryant Thomas Jr. So that was an interesting decision at the end of that game. But like I said, they gave it a go. They fought in the end. I thought the defense really stepped up in the second half for them. But at the end of the day, they're 2-7, and it's not looking good for their quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, right now with the injury he's dealing with to his shoulder. They may have to shut him down. We're going to see what happens. But there's not a lot of optimism down here in Duval County. Meanwhile, the Minnesota Vikings coming in 6-2, rolling in that extremely competitive NFC North. They lose to my Rams and they bounce back last week and beat the Colts. What are you feeling about this game? What are you feeling about seeing Mac Jones out there for the Jacksonville Jaguars? Could this be a potential shit show? I thought about maybe going to this game. Unfortunately, Weedy Boy is going to be out of town, so that's not happening. But would it have even been worth it, though? Would it have even been worth it, in your opinion? How do you think this game shakes out?
I mean, for it to be worth it, Mac Jones would have to ball out, right? That's the only way. What?
Burrow just threw a pick in the red zone.
Joey.
The under's looking good. 52.5 it was for this one. Looking like 7.5.
I was so close to taking that under on a live bet too, and I was like, Bengals in the red zone first drive, maybe not. But either way, yeah, with this game, I think the only way it's like really worth going to, unless obviously if you're a football fan and you can just appreciate a sloppy game, if it's just close, which it's hard sometimes, if you're not really a fan of those teams, the only way it's worth going is if somehow Mac Jones balls out and throws for, over 250 with a couple touchdowns, and this ends up being like a 31-28 game. But I don't see that happening, especially because when did that announcement come out that he wasn't playing?
I think it was yesterday.
So
and nonetheless against Brian Flores' defense too. So
right, I don't want to say short time for Mac Jones to prepare as the number one, but who knows? Maybe to start the week they had him in there just in case. So who knows? But
and he hasn't had any live game action, since the preseason.
Right, and that's a thing. Whether people realize that or not, like you can do as much as you want in practice, but having live game action against a real NFL defense in game is a thing. So rust most likely will be a factor for Mac Jones, definitely at least to start the game. Maybe that's a prop bet we throw in if we can find it, is a Mac Jones pick or some sort of turnover for that Vikings defense. So the Jaguars last week, like they looked terrible again in the first half. And I was sitting there with CJ watching the game because he's an Eagles fan, and it was just a blowout going into the second half. I'm like, well, this is what the Jags like to do. They like to look shitty in the first half and then come out in the second half and act like they remembered how to play football. And maybe they make a run at this and make this game interesting. Lo and behold, they did it. But to me, I almost expected that because it's what they've done all year. But I thought that second half said more about the Eagles and how inconsistent they are being on both sides of the ball as a team. So, but I don't want to get too much into Philly, but Jacksonville, I don't have much faith in them. I don't have much faith in Mac Jones. Against this Vikings team, right now it's sitting at -7, totals 44. I think that with this news of Trevor Lawrence kind of being fresh, I think the books adjusted a little bit, but I do think that the public ends up hammering this Vikings team more towards the weekend, especially Sunday morning, and this number is going to go. You're not going to see it go like 6.5, 6. It's going to be 7.5, 8, 8.5 once the public starts hammering this. So if you can get it now at 7.5, I would take that. Or 7, excuse me.
Moving on to a matchup that is usually very intense, great rivalry in the NFC South. It's not looking like that this season, as the New Orleans Saints, 2-7, 7-game losing streak, just fired their head coach. Do me a favor, Tyler, as I'm going through. I want to know who the interim head coach is for the Saints. But as I said, 7 games in a row, they've lost. Atlanta Falcons, who've won 4 of their last 5 now, are coming to town. Just defeated your Dallas Cowboys last week. Biggest thing going into this game for Atlanta is the injury concerns right now. Troy Anderson, Matthew Judon, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and Grady Jarrett. So those are some premier players in that Atlanta locker room. All those guys are questionable right now. So going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. Who ends up playing, who ends up sitting out. Does it even matter going against Derek Carr and this Saints team right now? Or could there potentially be a spark in New Orleans as Dennis Allen is gone? Sometimes you see that. Sometimes, the team with the new head coach, they step right in and all of a sudden there's some life.
Darren Rizzi.
Who is it?
Darren Rizzi.
Darren Rizzi. Not familiar. The special teams guy?
Good question.
Not sure. Again, we want to see John Gruden back in the league, and I think the Saints could be the spot. But we'll see. Talking about this game, though, you know what?
Special teams coach.
Special teams coach, okay. The Saints are coming off a loss against the Carolina Panthers last week. Just fired their head coach. Atlanta, everything's cooking right now, but there's a lot of injury concerns. What is the line?
Believe it or not, Falcons are minus only 3.5.
3.5. So that is a testament to the serious concerns surrounding Atlanta's injuries. That's the telling sign right there, is how optimistic even Vegas is right now about if these guys are going to play. And there is that aspect. Like I said, there's some added juice. There's some juice in that locker room when that head coach is out, who's just been a sitting lame duck these last couple of years for the Saints. I want to talk about the Falcons, and then I want to talk about this game. You saw the Falcons up close last week against your Dallas Cowboys. What are some things that stuck out to you about this Falcons team after seeing them up close?
Nothing really. I think they need Drake London. I think they need him. Dallas was 0 for 7 on 4th downs. Atlanta still only scored 27 points with all the gifts that they were given in that game. So I just think that they didn't really take advantage. Atlanta has been one of the, I guess you could say, luckier teams this year. We all like what they have, as far as personnel. But this is, as you pointed out, this is a good spot for the Saints. At home, new interim head coach, just fired Dennis Allen, that was overdue for about a year and a half. They're home dogs against a banged up Falcon squad who is high right now, right? We talk about buy high, sell low. Right now, Falcons are high, Saints are low. Or buy low, sell high, right? So we're selling high on the Falcons, we're buying low on the Saints. If you want to go away in this game, total sitting at 46, kind of high to me. I would go Saints, if anything, here at +3.5. Take the points in this spot. I think it's a good spot for them as dogs at home here. By the way, it is Derek Carr. 3 of his losses this year, 3, 2, and 1 points. Beside the one against the Chiefs, I think they lost by 13 or something like that. 3 out of his 4 losses this year have came by 3 points or less, including one last week to the Panthers. But that's it for what my take on this game. Again, I would go Saints +3.5 or nothing.
So Bengals turned it over on downs, they threw a pick in the red zone. Ravens get the ball back, 3 plays, 6 yards. Had to punt. Cincinnati, Joe Burrow just went down, scored a touchdown right before half, 30 seconds left. So 14-7 Bengals.
Wow.
The touchdown to Tanner Hudson. These tight ends, Cincinnati, they got something going. Gesicki has gotten going these last few weeks. He's been targeted tonight. And then Tanner Hudson, Eric All, it's going to be – he's out.
Out for the year towards ACL last week.
Oh, no.
Yeah, disappointing.
That's unfortunate. But I think he's got a great future in the league with Burrow. I really do. But these other guys are stepping up. Chase Brown has been exceptional for them. He's been tremendous. And now they got Herbert. But like I said, 14-7. Let's move on to the next game, though. San Francisco 49ers, 4-4, visiting the 4-5 Tampa Bay BUCS, who have now lost 3 games in a row. Team I picked to win the NFC South. They're reeling a little bit. Should have had a win in Kansas City. That would have been huge for the momentum in Tampa. Unfortunate. Obviously, Todd Bowles decides to kick an extra point instead of go for 2 in the end. 49ers coming off a win against your Cowboys, and McCaffrey is expected to play via Kyle Shanahan. So I'm excited to see him back out there. What the workload is going to be for him. But either way, the 49ers are getting much, much better. And there's still plenty of time for this team to get going, to make a deep run in the postseason. There's a lot of time. I know everybody's talking about the Detroit Lions right now. Commanders, as you talked about briefly in the beginning, the 49ers getting McCaffrey back. It's really, I know Ayuk's out, but they got a lot of time still to get it going in San Francisco. And I know that NFC West is really jammed up right now, but we've seen it in the past where this team's gone on 8-game win streaks to end the season. Like they're capable of doing that. And we'll see if they get something going. But Tampa needs a win bad. Atlanta's up on them right now. And it's important for Tampa to start getting back in the win column. Right now, 49ers, there are some injuries that they're dealing with. Like I said, McCaffrey's expected to play, but the receiving core is the big question mark. I feel like Debo's been up and down. Who's going to be the guys after that to step up? Juwan Jennings had that one game against the Rams. Other than that, he hasn't showed up. He was Jerry Rice against us that week. And then the rest of the season, he's been hurt or he's just not been effective for them. So Ricky Pearsall, he's back after starting the season out on the PUP list. Anxious to see if he carves out a nice role in that slot for them. But there's some question marks, that receiving core, but you got to have faith in Kyle Shanahan's ability to coach up. Getting McCaffrey back is a huge plus. And like I said, huge game for Tampa, they're dealing with some injuries as well. A lot of guys questionable for them. What sticks out to you this game? And who is this game more important for? Is this game more important for the Niners, in your opinion, or the Bucs?
That's actually a good question. I would say this is probably more important for the Bucs because they are on that 3-game skid. They have all those injuries at wide receiver. Godwin down for the year. Mike Evans, I believe, is still out. Shepard dealing with a hamstring injury. And Jalen McMillan questionable coming into the week. Like that, they have a lot of question marks at their wide receiver group, just like the Niners do. At least they have Kadon on the other side. You're like, well, thank God, at least we have George
He's
Kittle,
been big.
right? So I think it's a bigger game for the Buccaneers just because of how well the Falcons have, or just the Falcons have just been winning. They haven't looked exceptional. They've just been winning. And this is a game that they are poised to win here against this Saints team. But for the 49ers, I'm like, right now, who's leading that division? The fucking Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals are leading the NFC West right now. I don't see that holding up. Their biggest competition, I think, down the stretch is going to be the Rams. But even with the Rams, there's concerns on the defensive side of the ball, though they've been making strides, and I think they've been playing a lot better than people thought that they would be on that side of the ball. And now they have Cup. And now they have Cup and Puka back, and as long as Puka doesn't throw punches and he can stay in the game, then that's another weapon for Stafford. But either way,
that was such bullshit.
I think this is a bigger game for the Buccaneers. The 49ers, though, getting McCaffrey back is huge. I don't know much on the injury situation with Jordan Mason, but that can be a big 1-2 punch for them if both of those guys can be healthy at the same time. It's total sitting at 50.5 for this one. Niners are -6.5. I feel like you got to take the Niners, especially if McCaffrey's here. Like, you have to take them at this number. Other than that, that's really all I have. I don't really feel confident putting anything on Tampa in this one, so I'd ride Niners or nothing here.
Let's get on to the Buffalo Bills, 7-2, visiting the 4-5 Indianapolis Colts. It's officially Flacco season. We've had a week off, but Joe Flacco is the new guy. We've been talking about that prior episodes. Like, is the decision to be made of, hey, maybe Flacco gives us a better chance to win right now than Anthony Richardson, who looks mighty raw as an NFL quarterback. But the Bills, they got it rolling right now. 4-game win streak, coming off a big win at home against Miami last week. Tyler Bass, great for his confidence, hitting that kick in clutch time to win the game. That just had to feel amazing for Tyler Bass and everything that he's probably been going through in his psyche since that playoff game last postseason. So Bills are coming in. Everything's looking good. Meanwhile, the Colts, they got a lot of stuff to figure out, and they're sitting at 4-5 right now. So it's time to go for the Colts because you lost your last two. But I mean, this team is in it. Like, Shane Steichen, they got this team in like their games, but there's just something missing. I feel like we haven't seen Jonathan Taylor really get going like we know he can get going. Obviously, he's dealt with injuries early on in the season, but it would be nice to see just some more explosive plays, I feel like, from this Colts offense. We know Flacco is capable of doing it. I think Josh Downs is a player that's really emerged this year. I believe it's his second year in the league, but it looks like he's the number one now. They just paid Michael Pittman, and Pittman hasn't really amounted to anything compared to what Downs has been able to do this year. So if they can get Pittman, really going, like we know he could be that guy, that good possession threat. And then you got Downs mix and matching with and Donnie Mitchell, another guy, that receiving core who they drafted. We haven't seen anything from him. I actually just dropped him today in fantasy because there's just been he hasn't started 1 week for me, and I'm just tired. Like, there's no need for him because I feel like he's their fourth or fifth receiver on their depth chart right now. I don't know what the deal is with him. But this game, I feel like this is real big for the Colts. Playing at home, Buffalo's coming into town, and they're riding high right now. This is a spot to fade the Bills and take the Colts. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right. So, I mean, Bills are sitting at -4. Total's 47. We know the Colts defense isn't strong. We know the Bills are going to move the ball. They're going to put up some points. But the Bills have struggled to stop the run this year, and what do the Colts really love to do? Run the ball, right? And then they like to take shots off of that. Flacco this is a great bounce back spot for him and this offense. They played awful last week. That there's a statistic, I can't remember, like estimated yards per play or something like that. And for Flacco, he had a very bad game that we're not used to seeing him have, especially over the last couple, since last year with the Browns and the limited action he's gotten so far this year. But that estimated yards per play or whatever it was worse than any game that Anthony Richardson has had this year. So it was like kind of one of those where, yeah, it was one of those where they just made the decision to start him and bench the young stud, and then it just kind of backfired immediately. But I see this being a bounce back spot for them. I think that if you can get the Colts at +4, I like that. I also, as I'm talking through this, I kind of like the over at 47 because I feel like the Bills are going to put up in that 24 to 31 range. And I feel like the Colts can do the same thing as long as Flacco can have a good game. If Flacco plays well, I can see the Colts making this a field goal game. And then it being potentially like a 28, 27, 24, 31, 24 kind of game. Yeah, I feel like it's Colts +4 here, or maybe the over. I don't know which one I'm going to end up taking, but I'm with you though. I think this is a good spot to take Indy.
Next game that some things definitely need to be talked about. 2-7 New England Patriots going into Chicago. Playing the 4-4 Bears.
The Bears.
Talking about New England, I already covered Brian Flores go for 2 last week. Tennessee go win the game. Drake May, I've liked what I've seen. I've liked what I've seen from Drake May. He looks like he can be a quality starting quarterback in the NFL. It's promising to see. I'm excited for New England because that experience with Mac Jones obviously didn't pan out. I know he had that rookie season where he looked great, but ended up just not working out long term for them. And then obviously with what they were getting from Brissett, it's a lot more exciting, and you just feel more life in the offense with Drake May out there. So I feel like it's promising. It's obviously they're not going anywhere this season, but you recoup and you boost that locker room with the rookie quarterback contract, and there's some things you could do to really shape that roster in the right direction. Talking about the Chicago Bears, though, Tyler. By the way, that was a huge win that they had against the Jets last week, not the week prior. That was huge to see them go out there and get that win, even when Drake May went down in that game.
Oh,
go ahead.
So, all right, a stat I completely forgot to even talk to you about that I heard, which I was pissed about because I had a parlay. I had I think it was like a 10-leg parlay. It was something stupid that all I needed was the Jets money line. That's it. I just needed Jets money line to hit, and they fucking blew it. But the stat was like and the sample size was like 750 games. It was an insane amount of games where it was like in that scenario of where the Jets were up versus the Patriots when they were down, whatever the case was, I can't remember. But teams were 700.
I remember that.
They were like 750-0. And now it's 750-1. So that game was the one loss out of like 750 games, which is just insane. And of course, it happened to be the one that fucked my parlay up, and it cost me. That would have been a big cash out for me. So that's a bit of PTSD for me. But sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
No, you're good. It was I had completely forgotten about that from that week because I remember that. Chicago Bears, though. Todd, I know you're watching.
Hey, Todd.
I remember him bringing it up weeks ago about I'm liking what I'm seeing, saying Waldron, what he's doing. Caleb looks good. Everything's getting better, and things are looking high. They score over 70 points in 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks was against the Panthers, who they hung 36 on, and then the next week was the Jags, who they put 35 up on. And he's telling me, and I agree everything he said. Like, it looks promising, but there's an elephant in the room. You're playing, the Carolina Panthers, who are statistically the worst defense in the league, I believe, at this point, and then did against the Jags. Last 2 weeks, after putting up over 70 points in those two, they've combined for 24 points these last 2 weeks. So it's just going downhill in Chicago fast. There's a lot of heat on Matt Eberflus. There's some coaching decisions and things that have happened to that team these last couple of weeks that we simply cannot ignore. The Tyreek Stevenson incident in Washington, where they seemingly have the game won. Caleb goes down, end of the game. It should have been Caleb's moment that game. It should have been Caleb's moment to put his stamp on it. It's like, hey, I know first half, this whole game, everything was very sloppy, didn't look great. But he went out there and he won the game for him. And then Washington gets that ridiculous Hail Mary that bounces right into Noah Brown's hands, and just heartbreak for Chicago. Tyreek Stevenson not even being involved in the play because he's taunting fans, 10 seconds into the play when Jane Daniels is scrambling around. That's the kind of things that happen in bad culture organizations where the head coach doesn't set the right example and the right tempo and the temperature in the room. It's inexcusable. You don't see that happening with the quality head coaches in the league. And to be quite frank, I don't know if there's really any other. I mean, maybe Dennis Allen's Saints are doing something like that at the end of the game, but there's not a lot of teams where that stuff is happening. And just to feel like that he could get away with that in that moment, that rubbed me the wrong way. And Eberflus, we know he can coach defense. We've been saying that, through the offseason into this year. But if there was a concern, it was the coaching staff. Shane Waldron at OC. Jaden Daniels has got Kingsbury running the offense. Meanwhile, Caleb has got Shane Waldron, and then they just haven't figured it out outside of, those few weeks in between where they were playing lesser opponents. But now it's about to get real tough in Chicago with the schedule coming up after this game in New England. So I feel like this is could be an up week for the Bears to make you feel like, hey, everything's going to be okay. But it has to be this week. They got to get something together this week, because if you don't get it going before this gauntlet you face, there's going to be no chance. And like I said, they're already sitting at 4-4, so you cannot afford to fall 4-5 right now in that division with these teams in your division that you have to play coming up. The DJ Moore shit, also another thing. It's just bad. The bad body language, the altercations. It just feels like there's not a great relationship between him and Caleb right now. Just too much drama going on in Chicago. I don't know if this team can get it together. I was talking to Todd, and I said, looking at the schedule, it looks like a 7-win football team to finish the season, which I could have seen them at the beginning of the season being closer to 9 wins, maybe even 10. It's like we've seen rookie quarterbacks go out there and be able to win games, and now you got those weapons and that defense. Everything was looking up for Chicago after Hard Knocks going into the season. I thought there was a real possibility this team could go out there and compete for the division. So it's been disappointing. Like, I know it's early in Caleb's career, but right now it doesn't look great. They need to get a guy that's going to go in, set the culture. Like, I just feel like Matt Eberflus right now, he's a dead man walking. They probably won't fire him throughout the season because they don't have a guy to step up, and the Bears typically don't fire coaches, period. So I highly doubt they're going to do it during the season. Does this team quit? Does this team give up on Eberflus? Has it already happened? What are your takes on the Chicago Bears team right now?
One thing I keep trying to remind myself is, like, we kind of have been spoiled by Jaden Daniels this year and CJ Stroud last year. The way that these CJ Stroud being a rookie last year, the way that he played was incredible, and what Jane Daniels doing this year is incredible. You just don't normally see this from rookie quarterbacks. It's not something you see very often. So we kind of had that fear that there was going to be like super high expectations for Caleb Williams just because of all the hype coming in, and then all the weapons that he did have, the moves the Bears made to set him up for success. And, there was definitely room for something like this to happen where things didn't go the way that a lot of people expected on the upside of things. And this is what you get on the downside of things. And we've seen the ups and downs. This is kind of normal for a rookie quarterback to go through, but he also does not have the best coaching. And I feel like Chicago, while Poles made all the right moves personnel wise, coaching staff wise, that's up for discussion, right? And it's tough because it's something in a quarterback's young career, his first couple years, where that development phase. I feel like this could, and I'm hoping it's not, but this could be just like a year of setback for his development, just because of the lack of coaching with Eberflus and kind of what's going on.
100%. Couldn't agree with you more. And it's exactly what I told Todd as well. It's like Ryan Poles obviously did a great job, I think, building the roster. There's really no denying that. But the coaching staff is where it's lacking. And I think it may have something to do with cheap ownership being like, hey, we're not going to pay this guy 15 mil. So if you do fire Eberflus, which looks like it's going to happen, are you even going to be in contention for Ben Johnson with what your ownership is willing to pay? Because Ben Johnson, he's the cream of the crop right now. Who's going to be out there? Seeing what he's been able to do with Detroit, are they going to be willing to go out there and pay that guy, what he wants to come in there? Because you got everything. Like, I completely agree. I don't think Caleb, I'm worried that there could be some setbacks and bad habits formed by him his rookie year. But I have no doubt that if you get the right guy to go in there and take over, like he can get that cleaned up. It's one off season, he's going to get it cleaned up, and then week by week getting better and better. I couldn't say it better. Like, he's just not in the right situation right now. It's not in the right system. Like, there's no reason at all that offense shouldn't be putting up, at least 21 points a week with what they got going on. And then the defense, I know the defense gave up points in Arizona, and there's a lot of blame going around there. They've been dealing with some injuries too, but you can only do so much as a defensive unit when you're on the field all game because your offense can't move the chains. Like, there's just way too much pressure on the Chicago Bears defense, as it has been historically in that franchise. But this was supposed to be the turning point for them. It's unfortunate that we're just not seeing it right now. I do think that they have a bright future, but it's all dependent on who they bring in there to set the culture and run that offense and develop Caleb. Let's get on to the 2-6 Tennessee Titans, who I really don't want to talk about at all. Jamar Chase just scored a touchdown. Cincinnati just went up 2 possessions. So Cincinnati's looking good, and they're shutting down Lamar. So it's going to be a barn burner.
One question I'll throw by you is, if not Ben Johnson because of the price point, does that, is Gruden someone who might fit there?
I am praying that the league lets him back in. I heard like a brief rumbling one offseason about how he was in the Saints building just working with the coaches, and that set the light bulb off. I don't think there's been any serious talks, but he's talked about it in interviews. Like, he's staying ready. He's every single week he's preparing as if he still is an NFL head coach with what he's got going on over in Tampa. This guy's ready to go. And, I don't think he hesitates at all if a team's calling him. And fuck yeah, dude, I'd love to see John Gruden coaching anywhere, but that's another guy who's going to demand a high price. So you're talking about, like, if if he's made it known, he could. But who knows? Maybe he's a discount because he was kind of blackballed by the league. So
Yeah. Well, I think
it's
and
going to be
another name
interesting.
too. Yeah, another name too is like, Bill Belichick. He's going to be out there next year. He still
Yeah.
wants to coach, and I don't know if those are, Belichick's the best fit for Chicago, but he's a Hall of Fame head coach, and I feel like you can't, if they have the opportunity to get someone like him, they can't pass that up. But yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
I
see.
just don't know if that's the best fit because Belichick's coaching maybe 3-5 years, maybe. I think you put him in a situation like the Jets where Rodgers isn't going to be playing too much longer, and it's kind of them going out riding off into the sunset rather than a young quarterback that you got to develop. And that's why I
Mhm.
think you bring in an offensive mind, because even if you get Bill Belichick, like, yay, that's great, but who's calling the offense and developing the quarterback?
Right.
Maybe Josh McDaniels he brings in, but that's just going down the rabbit hole a little bit. I do
Mhm.
want to talk about this Titans-Chargers matchup. Not the Titans so much. They get a win against the Patriots last week, but Mason Rudolph, Titans, they're just a hard watch. And now they're playing the Chargers, who are another hard watch, but are coming off of 2 wins against the Saints, though, and the Browns. So Justin Herbert has looked good these last couple weeks, and they're sitting at 5-3. There's just something about this Chargers team, though, Tyler. The defense, I will say that I think the defense is legit, but how serious should we take these Los Angeles Chargers right now?
Well, I mean, this is like in the defense. The one thing is like, we talked about this coming into the year, if they could stay healthy, because they're very top heavy with some of their guys that they have, like Bosa, Derwin James, and Khalil Mack. If they could stay healthy, this could be a good unit, and they have stayed healthy for the most part. So this has been a good unit. So it's just offensively, what is the problem? I know they want to be a run heavy team, but like you have Justin Herbert, who we all know can be one of the better quarterbacks in this league. He's shown it. So like, why week to week do I keep finding myself asking the same question? Like, I'll give Herbert credit, over the last couple of games, at least numbers wise, statistics, you've seen him pick it up, but it's like, why is it taking that long? Why are we sitting here at week 10 and Herbert's averaging like 170 yards a game? At least it's what it feels like. I don't. That's not a true stat, by the way, but it's what it feels like. So I don't know. But this game is a very, very passable game for me. I don't have a strong lean one way or the other. Chargers are 7-point favorites. Totals at 39. It's a pass for me, or I'd go under on this one. I think that the Titans they're not going to throw the ball on this team. They're going to want to run the ball. They'll probably struggle. Chargers are going to want to do the same thing. Like, both of these defenses are like middle of the pack, but above average, but more middle of the pack to me. And both of them want to run the ball. So, yeah, this has kind of got underwritten all over it. It's going to be this could be a tough watch.
Yeah, I was just thinking as you were talking, going through it, that the under sounds intriguing. I wanted to know what the number was, and you said 39, and I think that 39 is pretty high for this one. So I'm a fan of the under as well. Quentin Johnson did look good last week against the Browns, but it's just been like a flash in the pan for Quentin Johnson. I feel like this week there's just not been a lot of consistency with him or anybody in that passing game for the Chargers. Moving on to your Dallas Cowboys, who are rocking it with Cooper Rush, riding a 3-game losing streak, hosting the Philadelphia Eagles, who are on a 4-game win streak. Sirianni catching a lot of heat after their game last week. Just refused to kick the ball. Kept wanting to go for 2. I feel like he always makes the wrong decision. If there's ever a decision to make, I just feel like Sirianni's always picking the wrong decision.
Yeah.
Outside of maybe that one to Barkley, I liked going for it there. Barkley drops it, and they end up losing the game. That one's tough because it makes him look worse. I didn't really mind going for it there so much as a lot of these other decisions that he's made. But your Cowboys, it's not looking great right now. Is Jonathan Mingo going to come in and save the day for this organization? Are we looking on the up? Because this This Eagles team right now, Saquon Barkley has been just a match made in heaven for them. And the Giants they should feel sick to their stomachs. Like showing he's done a great job drafting, but not getting that deal done and seeing what he's doing in Philadelphia, that's just got to be a knife to the heart of Giants Nation because he's fun to watch. And when the passing game isn't going because they dealt with a lot of injuries, Devontae Smith's been banged up, A.J. Brown's been banged up, Smith's questionable this week. Barkley's been that guy to lean on. It's been fun to watch, but the big thing for me right now is this Eagles defense. This Eagles defense, I think, is really starting to come together. Kenyon Mitchell looks like a certified number one shutdown corner as a rookie already. It's Howie Roseman just does it again. And then DeJean, I think, has played well when he's come in as well. And then obviously all the guys up front. Nolan Smith wins the game for him at the end. All these young guys that you saw this team draft these last few years, it's really starting to come together, and they're cooking with Vic Fangio and Philly. I think they're going to be a scarier unit as the season goes on, barring everybody stays healthy. How optimistic are you that your Cowboys can make this a game?
How do I say not very optimistic? I'm not. No, not very optimistic. It's just a tough time. I was walking out of work today with a buddy, and he's a Giants fan. And I was like, well, hey man, at least I can enjoy the shit show for the rest of the season with you, because it's obviously tough being a Giants fan right now. It's tough being a Cowboys fan right now. Cooper Rush, you kind of know what he's going to give you. He's a very mid-average quarterback. The Cowboys love keeping him around as their second option behind Dak. He's been there for a long time, so he knows the system. He gets it. I don't expect him to turn the ball over a ton. I think that's where you can improve. Dak, uncharacteristically, has been turning the ball over a bunch this year, and it's really that and their lack of third down conversion, their lack of red zone conversion being touchdowns, and just poor decision making has just led to them being a bad team this year. So I don't expect like the drop off from Dak to Cooper Rush as far of terms of like productivity. It's not going to be huge. Dak's had a tough year for sure compared to what we've normally seen from him. So I think Cooper's going to do okay. But the thing here is their defense. Cowboys defense has been second worst in the league, only to the Panthers. And you're bringing in a guy who's been hot in Saquon, who's averaging over 100 yards a game, is probably going to have 200. But as far as, because the Eagles are going to be missing A.J. Brown, and for some reason, when A.J. Brown's not there, it's a different offense for them. So we'll see. I think Dallas might be getting Deron Bland back this week, and Micah Parsons. So those are obviously two huge additions to that defense. The play here is probably Cowboys plus 7.5, and I hate it. I hate it because I'm probably going to sprinkle something on them at plus 7.5. They're home dogs, home divisional dogs, backup quarterback, just traded for a stud and Jonathan Mingo. Just kidding. But yeah, total sitting at 43.5. I don't really know where to go with that, but yeah, I'd say I'm probably going to sprinkle something on the boys here at plus 7.5, or probably nothing at all. Maybe a Saquon prop for 100 plus rushing.
Yeah, staying far away from this one. 7.5 is a lot for a division dog. As bad as this looked for Dallas, if those guys come back for your defense, I think that is that definitely makes it makes a difference in this line. Let's move on to the 3-6 New York Jets, who it's now or never. They have to keep winning to stay alive in that AFC. They get a big win against the Houston Texans last week, but they got to keep this train rolling in Arizona, visiting the 5-4 Cardinals, who've won 4 of their last 5. sitting atop the NFC West. I feel like this is another example of you sell high on the Cardinals, especially with the Jets coming in, needing a win. Like it's all on the line for the Jets. Whether they're going to make the run or not, I'm not sure. But I think this is a spot that is good to back the Jets. Tell me if I'm wrong there. Other than that, I would like to see this New York Jets offense just put it together with these weapons. It'd be nice to see because everything has been off in that offense this season. Devontae Adams, is he going to be more involved this week? Are they going to be able to get him going and what a nice compliment. Him and Garrett Wilson, like these two guys, there's no excuse that they shouldn't be going out and just shredding defenses. With Breece Hall as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like they gotta get the run scheme better in New York. And you gotta get these guys the ball because it's, if anything, Rodgers' mobility, I think, is really hurting them because the O-line hasn't been great and he hasn't been able to create on the run. And Aaron Rodgers is a legend for being able to make things happen with his legs. Mobility, not saying he's scrambling for yards, but he's always been great at being elusive, scrambling around and making something happen downfield. His eyes are always downfield. He's just at an age right now, coming off the Achilles, he hasn't been able to create like we've seen his whole career. So there's definitely some limitations with that O-line and his mobility, but still, like, let's get it going. Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, come on.
Yeah, you talk about guys who can throw the ball on the run on a dime. Ryan Rodgers has always been that guy, rolling out to his right, even to his left. Just throwing the ball on the run, he's been one of the best to do it. That's to Pat's point when he says scrambling around, just being able to buy himself time in and out of the pocket. But yeah, he has not been that same mobile quarterback that we're used to seeing from his past. Obviously, he's older, Achilles injury and all that, so it definitely adds up. But as far as what you mentioned too about their offensive line, like the reason why the Jets are a good spot here is like the Cardinals don't generate a ton of pass rush. Their defense is not getting after the quarterback like that. So this is a good spot for their line to give Rodgers some time to throw the ball, and just their defense in general. I'm still not there with the Cardinals defense. I still think they have a pretty bad unit overall. The only thing that doesn't trend well, if you're backing the Jets here, trend wise, is they started as a underdog and they flipped to a favorite. They're now, I think they were -1, -2. Now they were +1, +2. Now they're -2 on DK. So that's just a trend that typically bodes well in the opposite direction for the Cardinals, but it's not crazy. It's not like a 60-40. It's more of like a 54-55 percent range. But I do like this spot for the Jets, though. I think that they should be able to get it going against this Cardinals defense. And I think the Cardinals have won 3 in a row now, maybe.
Yeah, 4 of their last 5.
It's a good time to fade them. This is a good time to fade them. Total sitting at 46.5. That's a tough line because that's a tough line. I want to say the overs in play, but because I can see a little like a little garbage time or backdoor touchdown there late in that game to get it the over. But I think here, yeah, I feel like I'm with you back in the Jets at -2. Or if not, I'll probably stay away from this one, but I'm with you. They need to get it going. I'm still not sold on the Cardinals. It's crazy that they're leading the NFC West at this point in the year.
I will say it was nice to see them implement Trey Benson finally in this offense.
Mhm.
They got a serious run game in Arizona. So I think the offense is put together nice. I think that Jonathan Gannon deserves a lot of credit for turning them around in Arizona because it was just a dumpster fire for, a couple seasons. And he's done a great job of finding ways to win games for this Cardinals team. And they got a good thing going right now. Do we see it holding up throughout the end of the season? not very optimistic on that. Wild card spot, perhaps, but I think the Niners start to get cooking. And I know my Rams, we got a big revenge game when we play the Cardinals again because we got our asses kicked out of the stadium in Arizona week 2. So I know we're going to be hungry coming for them. It's going to be fun, though, this NFC West down the stretch.
Yeah.
Let's get into prime time, capping this off. Sunday Night Football, Detroit Lions, who look like potentially the best team in the league right now. Like, I know the Chiefs are undefeated, but the Lions, they look that good right now, the way they've gone out and dominate. And now they're doing it in bad weather at Green Bay after being told, these last few years that they're a dome team. But they've shown the ability to win in a variety of different fashions. Like, this team can go out there and win in a shootout, or they could beat you up and bowl at you. Either way, the Lions are in great shape. You talked about getting Zadarius Smith in there, which is huge after losing Hutchinson. They needed that. We talked about that last episode, them potentially being a team of bringing in a pass rusher. They're going on to face the Houston Texans, who are 6-3, who, coming off that loss last week with the Jets, we've talked about Stroud just hasn't looked the same. It's been a sophomore slump bit this season. But to his defense, it doesn't help when your number one, Nico Collins, goes down. You got to deal with that. And now Diggs is out for the season. So they're kind of having to adjust on the fly in Houston. I still think and expect more production out of this Texans offense, even with those losses, because I think CJ Stroud's that good. And I think Joe Mixon he's been huge. Like, where would they be without Joe Mixon this season? Imagine that, because the passing game hasn't been great. So Mixon that was a huge offseason acquisition, just kind of keep this team, where they need to be. So right now they're sitting at 6-3, but this is tough. The Lions are coming in and everything's clicking. Jared Goff looks like a potential MVP candidate. Every single week he goes out there, the ball hits the ground maybe twice, 3 times. Like, the accuracy is off the charts. Ben Johnson's dialing up, has been brilliant. And then the mix and match run game between Gibbs and Montgomery, they're scary. They got, in my opinion, the best offensive line in the league that plays very physical, and they're very hungry. And that's the same kind of mentality that the defense has front to back. Brian Branch is slowly becoming one of my favorite players in the league. I think he got ejected last week, but that guy is, what a draft pick that was. He looks like he's the next, superstar on the rise in the NFL as far as defensive players go. What's the line sitting at here? And do you have faith that this Texans offense, even with the injuries that they're dealing with, can they get it going this season, this passing game specifically? And do you expect this Lions run to continue?
Yeah, I think the Texans, there's so much room for improvement. They're sitting at 6-3. To me, they've played like a 500 team at best. I think they've had some things bounce their way, but if you're a Texans fan, you're like, yeah, we haven't really played great this year, and we're sitting at 6-3 with a pretty firm grasp on the division. I feel like there's some optimism there. I know Diggs going down for the years is a bit of a hit, but they didn't have him last year. They're going to have the same cast the rest of the year. They'll have Tank, but they didn't have Tank Dell down the stretch last year. They'll at least have Tank Dell. They'll have Nico Collins, should be back this week. He's projected to play. I think he is expected to play. So that's going to be a big boost for their offense this week. And then where would they be without Joe Mixon? Down bad is where they would be without him. Other than the play of Joe Mixon and Nico Collins when he's been healthy, this team, the offense especially, has not looked good. So to have these guys both healthy at the same time is huge for them in this matchup, going against this Lions team that has the best offensive line in the NFL. They have the best rushing attack in the NFL, other than maybe the Ravens with Lamar and Derrick Henry. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think, has like 30 to 35 straight targets with a catch. Like, they're on a crazy run. He's just getting separation. This offense is clicking on all fronts. This defense is playing at an all-time high for their defense over the last few years, and again, getting Zadarius Smith in there to fill the void of Aiden Hutchinson is huge. They're sitting at -3.5. The 3.5-point favorites at the Houston Texans. Totals 48.5. To me, until I see it from the Texans, like I didn't do a ton of research into this game, but I just like the Lions at -3.5. Last week, they were, as you pointed out, going on the road at Green Bay in a sloppy weather game. Everybody was all over the Packers in that one. I think the Lions were 3.5-point favorites in that one. Everyone was all over the Packers. Pros were on the Packers. Lions got it done. I think they ended up winning by 7 or 10 and
10.
10, 24-14. They got that pick six early in the game. That's the thing. Like, if the offense has struggled, the defense has picked them up this year. Kind of almost, Chief-esque, where when Mahomes in that offense has been struggling, the defense has been able to pick them up. You haven't seen that from the Lions the last couple of years, but this year you have. When their offense struggles, their defense has shown up. Now they have the full package there in Detroit. So it's an exciting time to be a Lions fan. I'm going to back them at -3.5 here. I feel pretty comfortable in that play until I see, I see something from CJ Stroud in this offense consistently. With Nico coming back, I think if you do back the Texans on this one, you take the points with Nico back, Mixon healthy. It's not a bad play. I'm just going to kind of ride the wave with Detroit here and back them laying 3.5.
Capping this off, Monday Night Football, my Los Angeles Rams, who after starting out 1-4 have won 3 in a row and are back in it, baby. Sitting at 4-4, hosting a team on the ropes, the 2-6 Miami Dolphins, who we just got done talking about the Jets. It's now or never for the Miami Dolphins. They got Tua back last week, or a couple weeks ago. They've still lost 3 in a row, but it's been 2 straight losses. But it's been more competitive, obviously, with Tua out there, much more competitive. So I'm happy to see him back playing. And now the Dolphins are relevant again. But they put themselves in a hole, obviously, with the injury that he had. They've fallen behind. And it's, like I said, it's go time for the Miami Dolphins. From a betting perspective, the over sticks out to me in this one because I think it could be high flying. Rams, the young talent on this team, I'm not going to lie, it's very exciting. There's so many rookies and second-year players in this defensive unit that I'm seeing growth from on a weekly basis. And Jared Verse looks like, Kenyon Mitchell has looked great for the Eagles as a rookie, but I think Jared Verse is certified Rookie of the Year at this point right now with just how he's dominated week in, week out. Going into this year, we talked about Byron Young and Kobe Turner from our rookies from last year who are going to lead this D-line, but it's been, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, the rookies this year that have really stuck out. So it's exciting for me seeing such a young front make an impact. I know last week we got after Seattle, who's not a great front as far as protecting Geno goes. So I am, level-headed at the same time. But either way, very exciting. Also, Cam Kitchen's 103-yard pick six last week was huge. Another rookie. All the young guys are stepping up. So that's fun to see. But I think Miami can get loose in our secondary. And I think Stafford, the way he's been dialed in these last few weeks, he's a huge reason why we're on this run. That throw that he made to Robinson last week in overtime was just completely Stafford-esque to win the game. I would expect some points in this one. I'm excited for this game because the Rams, they look like they're starting to really become something. Puka and Coop, both out there, has to make you excited. Kyron Williams, Demarcus Robinson, the supporting cast. It's fun to watch right now, Tyler. I'm not going to lie. The offense with the combination of the youth getting better on defense. But this is a huge game for the Miami Dolphins, and it's go time.
Yeah, I do not have a strong lean one way or the other here. Rams are 1-point favorites at the moment. That could change, going into Sunday morning. if you get some pros betting on this one who like the Dolphins side, which is kind of the rumor right now, is that the pros are on Miami here, but the pros aren't always right. We know that. Total's sitting at 50. So Pat likes points, 50. That means that Vegas expects points, right? So, yeah, I mean, this isn't really a sell high, buy low moment, because even though people think, Dolphins sitting at 2-6 is a buy low spot, it's not. Their last couple games they've been in it, they've had a chance to win, they just didn't. And the Rams, because it's one thing if a team is peaking. The Rams are not peaking right now. They're steadily rising. They're getting their guys back. They're starting to click a little bit. So the Rams are still improving on both sides of the ball, in my opinion. So I feel like I kind of like the Rams here at -1. Maybe the over if that's how we're feeling. At some point, though, with this Miami team, they continue to run the ball efficiently. When are we going to see Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle get going? I feel like we haven't heard Tyreek Hill's name called in like 8 weeks. He's been extremely surprisingly quiet this year.
Defenses have made it a point week in, week out. They've gone out there, and a lot of teams have copied what Buffalo's done and just said, yeah, you can run all these deep routes. We're not going to give it up. We're not going to give up the big play. So they're playing a lot of too high safety. A lot of the teams that they're playing, and they're just taking away that deep, explosive play. And I don't think that, to go at McDaniels a little bit, I think he deserves a little heat for, not getting these guys going more in the screen game and these underneath routes. I don't think they've been set up in the best situations based on how the defense has played. They've kind of still tried to attack vertically when it hasn't been there. But also, we got to remember Tua has been out for such a long time throughout the season that are we really going to hold him accountable when Tyler Huntley or what's his name? Tim Boyle. Skylar Thompson, Tim Boyle, Tyler Huntley, these guys are out there. It's just not the same. It's not the same. You can't do the same. There's a lot of limitations. Mm-hmm. So, as far as criticizing McDaniels, I will hold off a little bit to see how the season finishes. But it is underwhelming. Like, coming from a person that drafted Tyreek Hill 2nd overall in the draft, like I expected him to have a huge season, and it's been disappointing. We haven't seen it. Like I said, I'd like to see him really get schemed up. I don't think he's been schemed up as well as he has in the past. And then I don't think Waddle has been the best complementary role, and he's dealt with injuries, as we all know. Jonnu Smith, though, he's been a nice emergence at tight end for them. I will say it's been good to see him get going. He's just another weapon that makes it easier for Tua out there. And you always have that run game. They got a plethora of backs in Miami. They got a lot to throw at you. And this is a huge game for them. Jalen Ramsey going back to LA. It's gonna be a fun Monday night game, I think. And like I said, I expect a lot of points to be scored. Catching up on the game a little bit, touchdown machine Derrick Henry has scored again. Scores 21-14. But once again, Jamar Chase, as he always does, is killing Baltimore. And the Bengals are marching back down the field. So I expect it to go down to the wire here. We're about to wrap this up. We'll be able to catch the rest of it. But we want to thank y'all for listening to our Week 10 preview. Also, shout out to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Can't forget about that. Congratulations, Tommy Edman.
Congrats.
Jack Flaherty on getting your rings. Interested to see if those guys are kept there this offseason. I can't imagine Flaherty's coming back after how he performed in the postseason, but nonetheless, those guys get the rings. Shout out to them. Shout out to the Dodgers. They were the best team all along, and saw them get done. I thought it was an entertaining World Series, though. It won't look like that, when you look at how the series played out on paper. But nonetheless, I think it was an entertaining World Series. Exciting to see those two teams. We'll see what the Yankees do with Juan Soto. It's going to start heating up. the Juan Soto sweepstakes here. It's going to get crazy. They did just get Garrett Cole back, though, so good for them. But either way, everybody enjoy Week 10 of the NFL season. We want to thank y'all for listening. Once again, don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Get at us on social media platforms. We will see you next time. Goodbye.
Peace.
When I come to your city, I'm a new score. Broke your high score soon as I step through the door. Tryna stack my paper up like a bookstore. Money kissing each other like a rock and roll tour. When I come to your city, I'm a new score. Broke your high score soon as I step through the door. Tryna stack my paper up like a bookstore. Money kissing each other like a rock